Most people assume biomass is just another type of fuel. You burn it. It creates energy. End of story. At first glance, it seems no different from gasoline, natural gas, coal, or wood. But that assumption hides one of the biggest differences in how energy systems actually work. Because biomass doesn't behave like traditional fuels. And once you understand that distinction, the entire conversation around energy starts to look different. Traditional fuels are usually treated as stored energy sources that are ready to use. You extract them, transport them, store them, consume them. The process is designed around immediacy. Need energy? Turn the system on. Fuel goes in. Energy comes out. Simple. And over time, people became used to thinking that all fuels should behave this way. But biomass operates under a different logic. Because biomass isn't simply extracted. It's regenerated. And that changes everything. Organic materials like plant matter don't appear with energy already available in the same way traditional fuels do. They accumulate energy over time. Through growth. Through environmental conditions. Through biological processes. Which means biomass behaves less like a stored commodity, and more like a living energy cycle. That distinction sounds subtle, but it creates completely different expectations. With traditional fuels, the challenge is usually access. With biomass, the challenge is conversion. And those are not the same problem. When people imagine fuel, they usually imagine something stable and predictable. A gallon of gasoline behaves similarly every time. Natural gas follows relatively consistent performance. But biomass introduces variability. Moisture changes. Density changes. Organic composition changes. Even material harvested from the same place can behave differently depending on season, climate, and storage conditions. That means biomass isn't just fuel. It's fuel plus conditions. And this is where most misunderstandings begin. Because people often compare biomass to traditional fuels as if they should behave identically. But they're solving the energy problem in different ways. Traditional fuels concentrate energy. Biomass distributes energy across biological structure. Traditional fuels prioritize immediate access. Biomass prioritizes accumulation and transformation. And that changes how systems are designed. With conventional fuels, infrastructure is built to move energy. Pipelines, fuel stations, storage tanks. With biomass, infrastructure often focuses on managing processes, collection, preparation, conversion, environmental control. So while traditional systems optimize delivery, biomass systems optimize transformation. And that hidden layer changes everything. Because now efficiency depends less on the raw material and more on the process around it. Two identical piles of organic material can produce completely different outcomes depending on how they're handled. Temperature, moisture, airflow, timing. Suddenly energy becomes less about ownership, and more about management. And this creates a major turning point. The real issue isn't that biomass contains less energy than traditional fuels. It's that biomass requires more control over how energy is unlocked. Once people understand that, comparisons become more useful. Instead of asking, which fuel is stronger, the question becomes, which system fits the type of energy behavior I'm willing to manage? Because every fuel has trade-offs. Traditional fuels offer predictability but depend on extraction and supply. Biomass offers regeneration but depends on process and consistency. Neither removes complexity. They simply move complexity into different places. And that shift matters. Because the future of energy isn't necessarily about replacing one fuel with another. It's increasingly about understanding different forms of energy behavior and where each one fits. That's why biomass continues attracting attention. Not because it works like traditional fuels, but because it doesn't. It introduces a different relationship between energy, time, storage, and conversion. And understanding that difference makes the entire topic easier to evaluate. If you want to go deeper into how biomass systems compare with other energy approaches in real-world situations, there's a structured breakdown in the description. You can also find a practical guide and step-by-step framework that explores how these systems are typically evaluated. And as always, the goal isn't to declare one solution better. It's to understand what makes each one fundamentally different.